Hey y'all, welcome back to Breaking Skin, the podcast where women in tattooing share the career stories that usually stay in the studio. I'm your host, Kale Pearson, and this week we're going to be talking with Anna Williams. Anna owns Twice Rabbit in LA. This was my first time chatting with Anna, but honestly, I had a blast editing this. I was laughing out loud at how hilarious she is. Her story begins in New York, learning to tattoo around women who inspired her and were able to teach her, then taking her career from New York to LA, scary leap, and from there opening her own studio. I know that I left the conversation feeling inspired and really enjoyed hearing more about her journey to become the woman she is now, and I think y'all will too. She's going to explain it better than I can, so here is my conversation with Anna. Hello, Anna. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm really excited to meet you.
I'm so excited too. Thank you for having me.
Yay. Okay. Well, I will let you kind of kick us off and get us started. How did you get started in tattooing? What was your intro to this world like? All that.
Amazing. I feel like that is a frequently asked question by clients. It's on like the rotisserie of questions, like, how'd you get into this? So I have a spiel down. I guess the question is like, why was I interested in art? And then why was I interested in tattooing? I've always loved art. I've always loved drawing and making art. And I decided to go to art school. And while I was there, I met a friend of mine, Angie, who is now an incredible tattooer, but at the time was just getting into it. And she ended up finishing out school and finishing her apprenticeship, and then started her own studio with another friend of ours, Riley. And Angie brought me in as her kind of apprentice. She was a friend tour
Love.
and taught me everything she knew. And I used her little rotary machine for that year. And it was a studio in Queens, it was a closet. There was just a little entrance point. And so we were all in there, and I was learning how to tattoo and doing some really bad tattoos.
Love that. Love that. Are you from New York?
I grew up in New Jersey. Yeah.
Cool.
And then lived in New York I moved when I was 18 to New York and lived there for like 5 years. And then now I moved to LA.
That's awesome. Okay. Is the shop still there?
The building is still standing from what I understand, but no, they ended up moving location.
Okay.
There
But the
was
shop like itself still exists.
No, actually, Riley ended up moving to LA, and now she has her own place in Chicago. And Angie moved to a different studio, and now she's she's doing a van life situation, which is awesome.
That's so cool. The life cycle of tattoo to shop owner, back to tattoo, and
Yeah, the Bushwick to van pipeline is well trodden.
that's awesome. How long were you, quote, apprenticing or like just learning with these women?
Yeah, it was rapid fire. So I think I held a machine for the first time, and maybe a month later, I was tattooing my first person who was a friend of mine.
Nice. Those friends are great. Willing to make the sacrifice for the cause.
Critical.
That's awesome. When you were making art before, sounds like that's kind of your passion. Was it always similar to like a tattoo style, like pen and ink, or are you interested in other forms of art?
But yeah, I think my style lent itself really well to tattooing. I've always drawn, I've always kept a sketchbook, I've always been a pen and ink kind of person. So I think I think that's what Angie also saw in me, as like, oh, you would be such a good tattoo artist, because I studied illustration at school. So I
Oh,
was
cool.
always drawing. Yeah. I was always drawing, and I was always making stuff. There was a brief moment where I thought I would be a muralist, but standing on the street is not going up a ladder. It was too complicated.
Not in that LA heat.
Yeah. This was back in New York, but the heat's even worse.
Ugh, that makes sense. Okay. What year was it that you started picking up a machine and learning?
in 2019.
That's awesome. Were you straight into coils or using pen machines?
No, we don't have these as much in LA, but in New York, there's this ubiquitous shop called Unimax. It's on Canal Street, and they're the tattoo supply store, and they sell a very small range of machines. And Angie had bought this, I don't even know how to say the company. It's like Dewey Ann, but it's this
Oh,
tiny little rotary, like needles on bar and
yeah.
tubes and stuff, and an external power supply. And then Angie and Riley both got into the Cheyenne Hawk pens. So then I bought my own Hawk, and now I have the Cheyenne Soul Nova Unlimited, which is like pick a name, but that's the one.
I love that. Are you still a Cheyenne fan?
I am a Cheyenne fan. I bought the Bishop Rotary liner, but it's packing too much of a punch.
Yeah, cool. Do you think you'll stay with the pens or would you ever venture into coils?
I mean, I like learning new things, so I wouldn't be opposed, but I don't know anyone who runs a coil. So I would have to find that person first and then
Yeah.
have them teach me.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a lot of us at No Good right now. We're like, should we? I think we should dive in. I think we should learn
Learning
it.
is fun.
Yeah, for sure. There's something
Learning's
about
fun.
a coil machine too, to me, that feels like we're like keeping the spirit of tattoo alive.
There is a certain je ne sais quoi of walking into a shop and it's like, that
Yeah,
sound.
screaming metal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. It's overwhelming and man, it's expensive to just take a risk. So
Yeah.
it's something. Have you ever tried hand poking or have you worked around hand pokers?
I have worked around hand pokers. I think the best hand poker I know is an artist here in LA. His name's Daniel, and
Cool.
he's doing really good work. I have a piece on my thigh by him. But ouch.
Yeah.
No, that's not. I'm a
No,
quick, I'm focusing on getting those lines in there. I don't think I'm patient enough for hand poking.
I understand. I feel that. I'd never even seen it until meeting the No Good people, meeting
It's,
them
I
through
mean,
the crew.
it's amazing,
True.
but
Yes.
I don't have the fortitude to do that.
I don't think I do either. Love them for it. I love watching it and seeing the end result. Um, I'm on the same page as
Yeah.
you for sure. Okay, so back to kind of your timeline. 2019, you learning. When did you kind of start branching out, taking clients, being
Yeah.
like, I'm doing this?
So, one of the benefits of going to art school and being 22 years old is you have a large circle of kind of like grungy friends.
Mm,
So, it was easy for me to find clients. I don't know if we're calling them clients, but people, victims.
There we go. Love it.
And that was, yeah. So, my first year, let's say I started like September 2019, up until March when the pandemic happened, I was tattooing kind of friends of friends, friends of friends of friends, and slowly but surely getting better incrementally. I think what's tough about that first year is it's so inconsistent. Like I would have a day where I would do the most amazing tattoo, within reason.
Mhm.
And then I would have another day where it was almost as if I had never tattooed before. And keeping that confidence, you have to be a little bit delusional in life, I think, to be successful at all. But also, yeah, to stab people repeatedly and know that one day it'll look good, you really have to sell yourself a false bill of goods. But it ended up working out. So
That's awesome. Okay, so then you go in the pandemic. Is there a point during the pandemic that you start to shift into like really doing it, or kind of what did that look like?
yeah, I threw a Hail Mary in June and moved to LA. I had a couple of friends living here and I got a job at a shop here in Echo Park and they were brand new and it was a team of mostly women, maybe 70-80% women, and they were pumping money into ads on Instagram and TikTok and marketing. And so I was really able to hit the ground running, especially being in a new city. So that was super beneficial. And I learned a lot there. I worked there for a little over a year and had so many clients. I still have clients from that first,
Time period.
and I would
That's
swipe
awesome.
in California. This wasn't in New York, but in California, the stimulus checks came on like little prepaid cards. And so all the clients would come in and we'd swipe the stimulus check and it was awesome.
That's a experience that a lot of people won't get, and you will have that forever.
It was so powerful.
What an interesting, you're like, look at the government paying me. Those people.
We need a universal basic income so that I can tattoo more people.
There we go. There you go. That's awesome. Were you tattooing at a shop in New York since the pandemic had started, or did you have like kind of some downtime in between?
No, yeah. So I was at that private studio in Queens with
Yeah.
Angie and Riley, and then pandemic happened in March. We kind of shut down. I would play cards with Angie on her stoop, and then I was like, I got to get out of Dodge, so moved to LA, and then almost immediately started working at the shop.
Somewhere in the timeline, you shifted into becoming a shop owner. What
Yes,
was the rest of this life cycle?
absolutely. So I worked at the shop in Echo Park. I then worked at a private studio in Lincoln Heights called Rodeo, and feel like I was like everything was leading up to me opening a shop. It's something I've always wanted to do. I think when I was a kid, I fantasized about owning like a little retail store. My first job was working retail at this kind of dress and tchotchke shop in my town. And I was like, oh my God, I love having a shop. I love
Mm.
the people coming in. It was just great. So after working at Rodeo, I really got a sense of like, oh, I really, there are so many aspects of this shop that I really like. I love that it's, curated group of people. I love the kind of more private studio vibe.
Yeah.
And then also at that time and still now, I was guesting around. I went to Nashville. I went back to New York. I went to Philadelphia, Seattle, Europe, England. And I was kind of like cherry picking what I liked from each shop to create a Frankenstein of my own space. Now, all the things I thought that went well, some of the things I thought that didn't go well, and yeah, tried to make my own perfect sauce.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, shout out your shop. Tell people.
Yes. So my shop it's called Twice Rabbit. And also, I wouldn't be where I am without my business partner, Alyssa. So I met Alyssa working at my shop, Twice Rabbit. I started it in 2022. And Alyssa was a pretty new tattooer, and she came onto the shop, and we worked together for a year. And I was like, there are things I cannot do alone. I trust her with my life. And she's an incredible, incredible person. And so I said, do you want a partner? And also, let's find a new location. And so now we're in a new location from our previous one. We're in Frogtown in this cool converted garage space.
Wow.
And she's just amazing to work with. She's an amazing tattooer and an incredible person and friend. So that's the shop. It's the two of us. And then we have Chris, who's our apprentice, and then Madeline, who I worked with years ago in LA, Cassie, who just moved back to LA from Vegas, and Danny Scaringe, who just joined us like 3 weeks ago. So we're a good team.
That's so exciting. And then so important to have that like solid base of a team.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So in getting started in tattooing, transitioning from art school, why tattooing? Like what made you go, okay, I can do this instead of illustration or being a muralist, or this drives you
Yeah.
more?
So I'd always been attracted to tattoos. My town got a Benefit Cosmetic when I was in high school, and there were 3 women working there who had incredible American traditional sleeves. They'd gotten them at somewhere in Asbury Park, and I'd never seen tattoos like that. And I remember asking them about the shop, and they were like, "Oh my God, you got to check out the artist." And we didn't have Instagram yet, so she just handed me the business card, and then I went home and looked it up online, and I was like, whoa, this art is amazing. And I Googled, like, how much does a tattoo artist make? And I was like, can I make this a viable career? So that was in high school. Then when I got to college, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be an editorial illustrator. I could do New Yorker covers or, salon.com graphics. And then I found out that a New Yorker cover pays $600 and you're not doing a New Yorker cover every single day. So I didn't know how viable that was going to be. And so I kind of went back to my interest, my love in tattooing. I had drawn tattoos for myself and made artists do them for me when I was like 18. And I was like, I think I can do this. And then concurrently to that, Angie got into tattooing, and I saw how she was able to make her own art, tattoo clients, and support herself in New York, which is no easy task. And I was like, this could really work. I could really do something here.
The universe was like, it's all the stars are aligning.
Mhm.
You're gonna make it happen. It was almost meant to be. It kind of just fell into place.
Yes.
That's very cool. Throughout your career, what, in your perspective, has it been like to be a woman in the tattoo industry? It sounds like you've worked around a lot of women. So I don't know if you've experienced any pushback or notable
Yeah.
things.
I think I've had a very well, everyone's experience in anything is unique, but I think I've had a very unique experience insofar as my mentor was a woman who worked alongside another woman. I then moved to LA and worked at a shop that was mostly women. Rodeo was mostly women. I've guested at shops with, even if it isn't a majority women, I can definitely tell all the artists are treated equally, regardless of their gender. So I've had a unique experience because of that. And I think even, Angie and Riley had their start in a very traditional shop that they were the only women. And I think they made such a conscious effort of when they started the studio saying, we don't ever want our clients to feel the way the clients felt in the old shop. We want to have artists of, women, men, all genders, that everyone's being treated well. So I have had such an amazing, unique, and lucky experience where most of the tattooers I'm meeting are.
It's been more of like an empowering uh, experience through your lens rather than a negative one, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you made like a lot of friends and connections like throughout that have like webbed into your life? I feel like tattooing and working with women like webs into your social circle and
Yeah.
into your like chosen family.
I think when you meet another tattoo artist, there's an instant connection because you'll already have so much in common. And I think I've definitely experienced that with, other female tattooers, and just tattooers in general.
When it comes to experiences of coworkers that have impacted you, that have stuck with you, do you have anybody that comes to mind that's really like changed the trajectory of your career and life? Probably obviously the girls who got you started.
Yes, I would say most impactfully, Angie and Riley were hugely and continue to be huge inspirations. I also have I have a friend, Evan, who he had his own studio in Brooklyn, but he just moved to upstate New York and has his own studio there. And he's incredibly inspiring and he's always pushing his own work, which I really appreciate. He's painting and drawing and using, different inspiration from old memorabilia and collage. He's an amazing artist.
That's very cool. And when we were talking about doing this recording, something that you said you wanted to talk about was creating something out of nothing. So I had a couple of questions for you based off of that kind of point. So when it comes to your creative process, especially having an art background, what is that like for you, creating something out of nothing? Do you have like a method to the madness?
Yeah. So my mom's husband, actually, he's an entrepreneur and was talking about how there's nothing more satisfying in the world than creating something out of nothing. And that really spoke to me because I think that's what making art is, or art is making something out of something. But I think dreaming up a life for yourself and then executing the dream is so powerful. And also, something out of nothing is the same as tattooing. I mean, people come in, they don't have anything, and you transform a part of their body. And I think this something out of nothing as well is like, my shop didn't exist 3 years ago. And that means my career as it is now didn't exist 3 years ago. And I think constantly deciding to create is so important and super inspiring.
Sounds like it's a mantra that almost plays into your art and your life in a way. Is it something that you think about often?
Yeah, I think more of a mantra or the something out of nothing is like I think a lot about who I was in high school, meeting those women working at the Benefit Cosmetics. And if my high school self could meet me now, I think she'd be pretty stoked. I think that's more of the mantra in the mantra realm. I think about that a lot. I'm so glad I don't work at BlackRock or something.
Yeah. Do you think about that a lot, like being the person that you like looked up to as your younger self?
Yeah. I think about that. I had a moment actually around this time last year where I tattooed all day and then I walked to go see Green Day at the Echo in Echo Park. And I was like, I cannot believe that that was my day. That I gave a hand tattoo and then walked to go see my favorite band of all time, Green Day. I was like, my 15-year-old self is screaming.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
yeah, I'm so happy. I'm just so happy I get to do that. It's just amazing.
Yeah, that is very cool. And then to think that there's so many more years of nothings to turn into somethings.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. Also, growing up in New Jersey, I have a little bit of a complex because you're always like not in a place where things are happening. So the fact
Yeah.
that I was in the place where Green Day were coming was major. I was like, I
It's
don't have to
also
get
a
on
big deal.
New Jersey Transit to go somewhere that things are happening. That's major.
That is cool. What has it been like living and tattooing in LA? Do you feel like it's been hard or you fit right in or what's that like?
I've really in many ways it's kind of it feels like the only place I've ever really properly tattooed just cuz when I was tattooing in New York I was so new to it, but I really like the scene here. I've met interesting people. I feel like there are wonderful shops here. Yeah, I guess no complaints. Also, I feel like LA is tattooing. Like there's so
Yeah.
much tattoo history and culture here. California in general. I think it's just one of the highest densities of tattooers maybe in the world. So that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah, I've heard it's quite competitive and it can be a difficult place to just like start fresh.
I think that's true.
Sure. Is there like I guess a tip or like something you would tell yourself to that younger you moving in as a tattoo artist in LA?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think be true to your art and your art will be true to you. I think that if you just doing things genuinely and earnestly is typically a good way to go through life and just keep drawing. I
Hmm.
think that every industry is really hard to break into and everything requires luck. And my friend Grace's mom put this very well. She was like, everyone always says like, you have to get lucky, but it's like you have to be ready for your luck. You have to
Yeah.
position yourself to be aware of when opportunity presents itself and always take the opportunity, even if it doesn't end up how you think it will. You have to, yeah, position yourself to be ready for your luck.
That's awesome. Do you find yourself having like a trick to the luck or like a way of manifesting or being ready to embrace when it comes?
Yeah, I think saying yes to things, I think getting good at something is kind of the same as moving to a new city where you just have to say yes to everything. You have
Yeah.
to, opportunity presents itself, whether it's to hang out with a new friend or to go to this tattoo event or whatever it is. You just have to, yeah, you have to be a sponge and you have to, yeah, say yes.
That's a great I feel like a lot of people need to hear that. It's easy to say no and be like, I don't know, I'm tired, whatever, whatever. And it seems small, but it may be a big deal in the
Yeah.
end. The little butterfly effect.
I also try and remind myself of when we were all in quarantine and how eager we were to do anything. Like I would have gone to the opening of an envelope. And so now that the world is open, I'm like, just go. Just go and do the thing. You can always leave.
That's true. You can always go home if you're not having fun. I feel like more often than not, you start having fun and you don't want to go home.
Yeah.
So it worked out that way, which is great. And when you were getting into tattooing, did you have a moment? Like I know you had this moment when going to your Green Day concert and having this big day, but did you have something earlier on that you were like, "Damn, I made it. I for real am a
Mm,
tattoo artist," or like a specific like,
yeah. So this was super early and perhaps inaccurate for me to feel this way. But I was tattooing in Queens and I had my first big tattoo day. I had never tattooed more than one person in a day. And I tattooed 3 people. They were all getting the same thing. My friend Saskia and her 2 coworkers at the time. And it was part of my flash and it had a ton of black fill. I feel like all these stories involve black fill. I
Wow.
definitely did this black fill with a liner also, doing tiny concentric circles because I didn't know anything.
Took all
But
day.
it took all day. Angie was with me the entire time. She stayed for the whole day, looking over my shoulder, making sure everything was okay. I finished the last tattoo and they left and we went out on there was this huge deck and you could see Manhattan from this deck. And we were standing there and looking at the twinkling lights. And I was like, first of all, I just made $100 per tattoo. I'm rich.
Money bags.
$300. I'm taking cash home. And then I was like, wow, I am so tired and I'm so happy. Like, I don't want to have done anything else today. And I want to do this for as long as I can do it. And I remember that feeling of like, if I can just keep doing this type of day, life's going to be pretty good. I might even see Green Day one day. And I sure did.
Oh
No,
my
exactly.
gosh. That's such a, like, beautiful scenic moment too to be looking at Manhattan. I would be like, "Damn." That really is, like I feel like it's those moments where you're, like, in such a beautiful space, feeling tired, and also, like, so proud of yourself. Who cares?
Yes.
$300 feels like $1,000,000. I remember a time being like, "If I make $100 a day, I'll be happy."
If I make $100 a day, I can pay my rent, which living in New York is pretty inconceivable. So I was thrilled.
That's so amazing. Do they know that? Do the people that you tattooed know what that
Oh,
was for you?
definitely, definitely. My friend Saskia has, I would say, the broadest range of tattoos a person could ever have from one artist. Because she was one of my first clients. And there was a while where we were just kind of giving each other $100 every couple of weeks. So I'd give her a tattoo and then like she'd watch my cat. So there was just a $100 bill floating around Plum Hill.
Nice.
And that kept us going.
When's the last time the 100 bill got exchanged?
Whoa, that's a good question. There's definitely an inverse relationship between like the more money you make, the less you start making from friends. So I don't
Mm.
think I've charged Saskia in a while.
Do they live in LA or still New York?
She lives in London,
Wow, London trip.
Mrs. Worldwide.
I love that. LA, Miami, New York. Mr. Worldwide.
Exactly.
You mentioned that you've guested abroad. Where have you gotten a tattoo outside the US?
I have tattooed in Berlin and Paris and London and Brighton. And I did a convention in the north of England in Leeds last summer.
That's so awesome. Is there a trick or a tip that you have for going outside the country to tattoo?
I would say, be cautious. Oh, I tattooed in Vancouver also, but that's like, just over the
That's
border.
something.
Doesn't feel quite as lipstick stains on my passport, but I did go to Canada. I would say the tip is to get paid in cash.
Mm.
And also, at least in Europe, this wasn't the case in Vancouver, but boy, those prices are going down. The prices I was charging, especially at the convention in Leeds, like I lost money doing that convention, but yeah, tattoos are not priced the same way in England.
How do you figure out what you're gonna charge? Do you like talk to the other artists in the shop and be like, "What's going on over here?"
Yeah, I haven't didn't talk to any artists, but I talked to a lot of friends who consistently get tattooed and they were like, yeah, we're not spending really more than 200 pounds on a tattoo. And I was
Yeah.
like, for sure.
Well, you kind of have, if you want to work, like you kind of have to match it.
Yeah.
I don't even,
And
I guess I'd get on Reddit and ask. I don't even know anyone that lives abroad like.
Yeah. I often ask questions to Instagram and not
Mm.
like Gemini or whatever, but I'll just put on
On
my
your story.
story and then they'll say, we have no money. And I'll go, that's fine.
That's so good to know. Whenever I just got a tattoo, we went to Barcelona last year, I got a tattoo and I was like, "Hey, I don't want to be weird. Do you take tips? What can I expect for pricing? Like, I want to pay you in cash. I don't know as a client. I don't know how it is here." but I surely did tip him a lot because I was like, in the US, this would be double, like easy. It's so good. And he was like, well, you paid me. He's like, I think you gave me too much on accident. I was like, nope, that was intentional. So if you could come to the US and
I
work, it'd be great.
yeah, I did $150, sorry, 150 pound tattoo in England, and someone gave me 160 in cash. And I went, "Oh, do you want the change?" And he goes, "Yeah, of course." And I go, "Yeah,
Of course, I don't know why I would ever.
that 10 pounds is yours."
I don't know why I would have ever
How rude. I
thought I would keep that.
wouldn't dare take that 10 pounds from you.
And you're just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm tired from the travel.
Tattoo brain.
That's so funny. It is so interesting how different the culture is.
Yes.
I'm now gonna ask. I don't know who I'm gonna ask somebody whenever I travel. Maybe I'll ask you.
Mm. Allow me to be your cultural attaché.
Seriously, I'm planning on tattooing in Canada this summer if they'll have me. And I don't know. I just know that people's inks explode in the plane. Have you seen that?
No, I went up to San Francisco and I flew, and I took just a little bottle of ink but I had it in my hand luggage, so it didn't explode.
Yeah, there was a girl that guested with us. She got like immediately off her flight and had a client, and I saw her pull out of her bag. It was like her backpack, so she must have been her carry-on, and it was just a Ziploc bag filled with like colorful ink. Like everything had just like there was ink in this bag covering her inks, and I was like, "Hey, you want to just use mine? You just want to not open that bag right now?"
No,
The
that's
client's in the
going.
lobby. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so fun. Do you enjoy, or do you have like do you try to travel often to tattoo other places?
Yeah, I think since I own a shop now, I feel like I have, I want to maintain the shop. I work with Alyssa. So I will travel back to the East Coast. So I was in DC a couple weeks ago. I'll probably go to Philadelphia again. New York is too expensive to visit. So I would love to tattoo in Brooklyn, but someone needs to give me an apartment or $30 million. But yes, I definitely want to tattoo more. I had great luck in Seattle. I had the best guest spot of my life there. So I'll definitely have to go back to the Pacific Northwest.
That's awesome. Have you ever been to Austin?
No, but boy, am I being beckoned there. Sometimes I'll put on Instagram, where should I come next? And it's always Austin.
You
So I should
should.
heed the call.
It's not that far away. You have
It's not.
options for places to work, and the owner of our shop has a Airstream in the back for guests to stay close to the shop.
That sounds pretty ideal.
It's really cute. You could ride a bike from the Airstream to the shop.
Yeah. And I know how to ride a bike. So
That's great. And then you can get all around town. It's really cute. We just had a guest come from San Diego, and he was like, I was just visiting, but I think I'm going to move here now after being here.
I feel like everyone in San Diego is just one toke over the line from moving to Austin.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like more affordable, I think, for him. We also ended up like hanging out a lot, and he traded a lot of tattoos with a lot of the artists there. So it didn't help that we were like immediate friends.
Yeah, I
But I've
know.
also never been to LA, so I don't know.
Well, you're definitely selling it.
Yeah.
So I would like to come see it.
Just for a visit. Then we can all hang out and go get drinks, and I'm sure Lauren would be happy to see you.
Yes.
Also, I love your work, so I probably would get a tattoo from you if you came.
Oh, thank you. I love your work. I saw this eagle you did, and I loved it.
Such a classic. True American classic, the eagle.
Yes. I'm always concerned putting an eagle on my arm because I don't want to be mistaken for like a patriot or something. So I have one on
Yeah.
my leg.
That's okay. That's good.
Hey y'all, I'm Sarah, founder of Mind Your Ink, a booking platform built specifically for tattoo artists. As a client, I watched artists I love struggle and get overwhelmed managing their appointment requests. So, I built something that actually works for y'all, not against you. Artists using it say they finally feel on top of their books instead of playing catch up. If you're ready to upgrade your booking flow, get a month free with code BREAKINGSKIN at mindyourinc.com/breakingskin. We're here to take care of the booking chaos so you can spend your energy where it matters most.
Anyway, when it comes to your career and interacting, we were talking about interacting with your coworkers and people when you're traveling. Do you have any clients that have stuck with you or like you think about often?
Yeah, I actually had a client recently. So I guess I haven't had a very long time to keep thinking about them, but they came in and I think they were 18 or 19 years old. This was their first tattoo. And they came with their mom, and they were getting a version of the tattoo their mom had on her ankle.
Cute.
And it was so cool to give someone their first tattoo in general, but to give, I know I gave them a good experience. Like, I know they came in, they were instantly comfortable. I worked on the design a little bit. They loved the design. And it was really cool also. I don't think, at least I don't typically associate getting a tattoo as bringing your parent to come with you. So it
Hmm.
was so cool to see this kid who obviously has a great relationship with their mom, and their mom was so proud of them. And at the end, I took a picture of my client Belle's tattoo next to their mom's tattoo. And yeah, and I was talking to their mom a little bit, and she was describing her experience of getting tattooed. She must have gotten it in like the mid 90s. And just thinking about how much shops have changed. Like, there was no private studio in Frogtown to bring your kid to come get a tattoo where you could sit, and she like took a Zoom call. Like, it was great. It was just so nice. And I think giving someone their first tattoo, you always remember your first. So being
Hmm.
able to have it be a positive experience is awesome.
Yeah, it is. They're gonna like think about that forever until you're tattooing the same tattoo on her daughter's ankle
Yeah.
in 20 years. So that's very cool. Those moments are special. And you probably will continue to think about it for a long time. Do you get a lot of like parent child combos?
No, I think that's why it stuck with me.
You're like, wow, this is crazy.
Yep.
They got to
I
go
really,
somewhere.
well, they've got to go somewhere, so they might as well come to me.
No, that's for sure. When it comes to your creative process and back to like, I guess, the making something out of nothing, where do you find inspiration? How do you come up with your tattoos? Where do you start?
Yeah, I would say, visually, I get a ton of inspiration from old illustration, old woodcut stuff. Also, like lino cut folk art, I'm also really enjoying. So I mean, looking at other art and absorbing art is always inspiring. And I get a ton of inspiration. This is now less visually and more just as a person or an artist. I get a ton of inspiration from my friends. I have friends
Mm.
who do all different types of things. And I think it's really inspiring when you have a friend who is really pursuing something, excelling in the thing that they're pursuing, and you get to feed off that and
Yeah.
it's so cool to be proud of your friends and see, especially when it's something that you really don't know anything about and you see them doing a really good job. It's awesome.
Yeah. That is a really good point. To get to support your friends is a very cool thing. Do you feel like you feed off of that kind of same energy with your coworkers too? Like seeing them work and grind?
Definitely. Absolutely. I mean, I think in an apprenticeship, having a great mentor is great, but it's about being in the shop. It's
Hmm.
about seeing, oh, this person does this differently. And I see that person's pushing rather than pulling their line. All of that
Yeah.
absorption, again, like being a sponge. I think that's the best. And there are so many days. My favorite days are Saturdays because that's normally when the shop is busiest. And seeing people come in and what they're getting, how each of the artists at the shop navigate the design and apply the design because everyone has their own
System.
system, their own ritual, their own practice. And seeing that's really awesome.
Definitely. That is very cool. Do you feel like being a shop owner has influenced your creative process as a whole?
I think that, yeah, I think it has. And I think that now that I have other responsibilities than drawing flash and booking appointments, I think it makes me be very conscious of the time I'm spending on drawing. And, when you have more on your plate, you have to be more intentional with how you spend time.
Mm.
It's like that thing of like, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. And I think that having duties at the shop as well as being a full-time tattooer, I've had to, be very intentional about how I'm going to get things done.
That totally makes sense. Do you have any kind of tricks you've learned along the way, or I guess processes that you've put in place that have helped you grow professionally as a tattooer and creatively now that you are a shop owner? I'm sure the balancing act shifted once those new responsibilities came into place.
Yeah, I mean, wake up early. Just got to wake up
You
early.
wake up.
There's only so many hours in the day. I mean, a lot of people at the shop joke. They're like, Anna, I hate to see your 6:15 a.m. texts coming through. I was like, I appreciate that. That is, I don't need to be on my phone at 6:15 a.m. on the WhatsApp. But yeah, waking up early. I go to bed early.
When you wake up and go to
And
bed.
I'm waking up. I wake up at 6. That's pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not like Mark Wahlberg at 4:15 doing whatever, an hour of prayer in my hibernation tank. I wake up early and I get going.
When do you go to bed? Gotta get that sleep.
Like 9 for 10.
So do you find that routine kind of keeps you on track?
Definitely. I think being an artist is, I mean, it would be amazing if I kind of woke up in a Parisian apartment in like a flowy caftan and was able to paint all day. But I think that I treat it like a job. I
Mhm.
make art as my job. I probably wasn't John Coltrane who said this, but there was a famous jazz musician who, when asked, how do you create this music? He's like, oh, I wake up and I go to work. And I think that's the same kind of approach. I have a lot of things to do and I wake up and I do them.
I love that. What time do you wrap up tattooing?
I do 2 appointments a day. So I have a noon and then a 3. So I'm done normally at like 6.
Do you do like half day sessions essentially, or like half days and full days?
Yeah. So each client gets either one kind of larger piece or 2 smaller ones.
Mhm.
And that's a flat rate and they can pick through Flash or some, I'll do customs. But I think having 2 a day it's nice. I feel like I can really focus on each client. I've taken more, especially if it's a
Sure.
small piece, but my go-to is a noon and a 3.
I love that. That's a different way of functioning. I don't know that I work with anyone who does that kind of format, but I like the consistency.
I do too.
Yeah. The trick. I feel like that's such a good tip that sometimes we as tattoo artists can be, or as artists, period, not even just tattoo artists, can be like very scattered or up super late. I know a lot of people who will be like, I know a particular tattoo friend will be drawing until like 4 o'clock in the morning and then like sleep it just is all shifted. So I do like that balance. And it gives you like, if you want to go have dinner with your friends, you can do that. How
Yeah.
many days a week do you tattoo?
4 or 5, typically 4.
Mhm.
And then Mondays I use as like Alyssa and I will meet and we'll do shop things. So
Admin
yeah,
time.
4 or 5 days.
That's awesome. How long have you kind of been in this rhythm, like this 6 a.m., 9 p.m. rhythm?
Probably 3 or 4 years. I think certainly before I opened the shop, I was doing this. Yeah.
I'm so intrigued by this. What's something you hear about online?
Yeah. Well, because
But-
it isn't very sexy. Like waking up early and going and doing a workout and making a smoothie isn't very fascinating or like intriguing. I had this client tell me about this insane experience she had with a tattooer. She was getting like a quarter sleeve done, and kind of maybe an hour into the appointment, he was like, and of course he was like 2 hours late to the appointment, but he was like, okay, like I just got a call. I just found out I have a son, so I have to go meet my long lost son, but I'm just going to back team you and like, I'll be back in a second.
Your
And so she
tattoo
just
artist said
was-
this to you?
No, to my client.
Okay. I was like, this happened to you?
And yeah, and then like, this was a 3-session process. And he wouldn't wake up before noon and kind of stumble in and be like, okay, let's figure out what else I have left to do. And I don't know where this tattooer is now, but he's definitely not waking up at 6 a.m.
I cannot believe someone had that. First of all, 2 hours late is not cool, but also I just found out I have a son right now and I have to go is kind of crazy.
I have to go meet him right now,
I don't know why I couldn't.
mid tattoo.
I couldn't wait till
Yep.
tomorrow, this afternoon, tonight.
No,
Wow.
mid-sesh.
Sorry to your client. Did she continue to work with him?
I don't think so.
Yeah, after the sun thing, she was like, I think I'm gonna go.
I think I am going to ultimately leave.
That's so wild. When you were receiving tattoos, did you ever have an experience that you were like, oh, I don't want to be like that with a tattoo artist?
I've had really good tattoo experiences. I think I've sought that out.
Mhm.
I've gotten recommendations of who to go to, or it's been friends of mine. No, I think I've witnessed that. So I've been at a shop where an artist isn't being particularly good with their client, and I've put myself in the client's shoes and been like, "I only know if I would have liked that." But I have never been on the receiving end of that, which is good. I did once receive a tattoo, great artist, but he was vaping while tattooing. And so he was taking his vape and then he was sticking it in the A&D on his station. And I said, I don't know about that for me personally. I don't know if the jewel juice needs to be getting into my juices, but I'm not here to throw stones. And the tattoo came out great. So what would the tattoo have looked like had he not been vaping?
Or maybe
Probably
that's the
not as
magic.
good.
Maybe that's the magic.
Exactly. Yep.
That's hilarious. I have never heard that. Did he at least wrap the outside of the jewel?
No.
Dang. I thought he would
No,
use that extra step, but
I know. But I was like, wow, he's so free. Like that isn't
he doesn't live by rules.
like that is a free man.
It's the was he like at least the man's audacity. It's the I
And
don't know that
he's-
I could do
He's
it.
jeweling
I don't
and
live it doesn't
tatting.
live in me. That's so
No, well, you're
the
not
little
meant to
buzz
do
just
that.
takes him to the next.
That's skyrocketing him into the stratosphere. I like to imagine that he has like a utility belt and it's like machine and his jewel. And he's like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go to work.
It's in his apron pocky.
It's in the
That's
top
so-
shelf of his station for sure, rolling around, covered in A&D.
Yeah. That's so funny. I love that story. I'm so glad you shared that. Do you have any other gems like that you want to lay out for me?
Well, let's see. I would say, this is a favorite. This is a fan favorite. So one of the first tattoos I did in LA, it was a little skeleton on a skateboard. And I was doing it on my client and he was wearing AirPods, but they were not connected to his phone. So he thought he was listening to his phone, but there was no connection. Anyway, his friend calls him on FaceTime and they were in a fraternity together, but like he was in his 30s. Like they were not actively in a fraternity together. Anyway, he picks up his phone and I'm tattooing him. So he's like this and he picks up and his friend goes, dude, are you getting a tattoo right now? And he goes, yeah, I literally did. And he goes, dude, your artist has a huge rack. But it was not through the AirPods. And I just pretended not to hear that.
Pretended that the AirPods were on.
No, exactly. And then he was like, oh, did you hear that? And I was like, what? Because I wanted to repeat it. He's like, what do you mean?
Her
Why?
what?
What did he say? So that is a fan favorite.
I hope he tipped you well.
I believe that he did.
That's so I feel like I would immediately notice that it's playing aloud and not in my headphones.
Yeah, a similar incident happened to a friend of mine while she was at Glastonbury, and she thought that her AirPods were connected to her phone, but the phone was connected to a Bluetooth speaker that was at the campsite, and she started listening to, I don't know if it was Harry Potter, some very fantasy, like Stephen Fry narrated book, and I was like, what the fuck is she playing? And it was not in her AirPods. So you're going to want to make sure those are linked.
Make sure you know where you're playing things. Sometimes I think I do that when I leave the shop and my phone's still connected and I'm like playing a true crime podcast
Exactly.
into the shop.
I got in the back of a cab once and the cab driver was listening to possibly the most graphic podcast I've ever listened to about the Rwandan genocide. And I was like, look, it's important that we know these things. I don't know if your cab needs to be the location of my edification.
There's where your AirPods come in. Maybe
put
he
those
thought he was
in.
connected to the AirPods.
I'm sure he didn't. And he
You know,
was
this
like, "Are
is
you listening?"
intentional.
I said, "Well, yeah, I am. And there's a time and a place, but I don't think like this evening was the time or the place."
He's, like, driving with his head backwards.
Yeah, he's just looking in the rearview mirror. Um, yeah, that was also during the time of Uber Pool, which was an electric time in our shared history.
I don't know that I ever got in an Uber Pool.
Okay.
Is it gone?
So I think it's gone. I think they got rid of it during the pandemic, but the vibes in Uber Pool were essentially it was turning people's Toyota Camrys into the subway, but like a small subway. So you'd get in the back of the car and you'd be with randos. And sometimes the vibe of the car would be like you're getting chatted up in the back of the
Yeah.
Camry. Other times, the best time, I got in the back of an Uber Pool and this woman gets in and she goes, "I need to tell everyone just what just happened." And I said, "Yep, you
I
have
wanna
an
know.
attentive audience. Yeah, absolutely. Tell us right now." We picked her up on the Lower East Side. And she was like, "I just went to a bar where the actress who played Chelsea in That's So Raven sang karaoke, and it was a That's So Raven theme song. Like, you can gaze into the future." And I was like, God, I love this app.
Bring it back! We need it back!
Bring it back.
Wow. I feel sad I never got to see that. I bet people had great stories, especially in New York.
Oh, so many.
I'm sad I missed that. I'm gonna email them. I'm gonna say, "Bring it back. I want it just one day for me."
Mm,
Okay. I guess back to tattooing. I love these
of
stories.
course.
This is the shop gossip. In your work, who or a tattoo artist or a regular artist, who or what is inspiring you right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many artists that I feel super inspired by. There's an artist up in Fresno named Hannah Evans. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she is firing on all cylinders. She's an incredible painter, an amazing illustrator, an incredible tattoo artist. And she's also, I mean, she's really kind and caring. I got a tattoo off her maybe 2 years ago. And yeah, I'm kind of like when in doubt, be Hannah. She's an amazing tattooer.
Wow, I'm gonna go follow Hannah. She sounds cool.
She's very cool.
Inspired. I love that. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you're excited about?
Yeah, I've started working larger scale. So doing back pieces, and I've done a few kind of one and done back pieces. So I'll design the back piece and say, who wants it? And I did one maybe 3 weeks ago of this like snake eagle. Alyssa called it a sneagle. Fair enough.
Love it.
And that felt like an amalgamation of all of the work I've done. Like all my hours of tattooing, all of my drawing, like led up to doing this amazing back piece. And also so cool that it was something I drew not necessarily with that in mind. I drew it in my sketchbook. And then I was like, oh, that could be a back piece. And I wonder who would want it. And then, yeah, being able to do that was awesome.
I've liked seeing you post them.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great feedback.
the back and the ones I love seeing artists post that because it is such a good way to like really do your art of how you envision it, and also like a great way to have business.
Yeah,
So I wanna do it too. Now look, you're inspiring me.
you should.
One of these days. One of these days. Do you work in a sketchbook a lot more than digital?
I try to. I feel like it's a good way to explore different things. It feels kind of, even though I guess you can't erase, but it feels lower stakes. Something about when I'm working on my iPad, because my process is I will often draw in my sketchbook, do a bunch of weird things, and then be ready to turn them into tattoos. I'll use the iPad almost like I would have done vellum back in the day, drawn over that, made a stencil, and added it to the flash. But I think staying in the habit of drawing with a pen is important, at least to me. I feel like if I go right for the iPad, my stuff ends up looking like not as much my own.
Yeah. So do you do everything sketchbook then to iPad?
Not everything, but I feel like a lot of my better designs, they are from that. For simpler stuff, especially if it's like like a cover up. I was meant to do a cover up yesterday. We had to reschedule, but it was a verse on her arm, and we're covering it with a panther. And that's where I'm like, the iPad is a gorgeous invention because you can draw literally over the tattoo.
I agree, 100%. Couldn't do without it. I don't know. Doing cover up before that, I mean, I get how people would, but still tough. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you want to share or highlight before we get to the end?
Yeah, I think, tattooing has changed a lot, especially the industry, I would say in the last 10 years. And sometimes there's this sentiment that it's changing and there's not enough room for everyone, or it's changing and it should go back to the way it was before, or we're losing track of whatever. But I think industries are supposed to change. And I think, there is room for everyone. I think the more tattooers, the more people getting tattooed, that's good for everyone. That's good for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that also showing people grace, or also just showing people or understanding that people can come from all different walks of life and be great tattooers. My friend Katie, who's a wonderful tattooer here in LA, but she always says that rising tides lift all ships. And if conditions and tattooing conditions get better for everyone, the client, artists, that's good for everyone. I think that the more people getting tattooed, the better environments we want to tattoo in. Also really changing up, the financial ways shops are run. So it used to be, you're giving 40% to the shop, you're giving 50% to the shop. I think people are, pushing back on that, starting their own shops, lessening rates, having smaller day rates, running as a collective. Like, I think that's beneficial for everyone. And I think that although the industry is changing radically, I think it's changing in really exciting ways.
I agree. It's creating space for people to just be who they want to be. And I feel like the people who, maybe a crazy opinion, if your systems aren't in place, if you're being inappropriate, and if you're creating unsafe environments, those are the ships that don't float when the tide rises.
Yeah. And, to quote Ratatouille, not everyone can be a great cook, but a cook can come from anywhere. And I feel like back in the day, there was a very small portion of the population who could become tattooers. And I think that we're broadening the horizon of where tattooers can come from. And I think that's really exciting.
It is cool because then you get to see styles and work that people haven't seen before or wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Totally.
Tattooing cool. Great. I love that. Love that you quoted Ratatouille.
It's a powerful work of cinema.
Yeah. It makes me want to order it anytime I see it.
Yes. And I'm always disappointed.
It's not what I want it to be.
Well, it isn't a Pixar Ratatouille, so I'm upset by that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I enjoyed hanging out with you and hearing your stories and shop gossiping and kikiing. But I don't want to take up your whole day, but I do appreciate your time. And I appreciate you chatting with me and sharing stories and how you got started, all the inspiring things. So where can people find you, or do you have anything that people can buy or do to support you?
Yes, I would say, not so much to buy yet. I'm going to set up a merch thing for my shop, but my Instagram is Anna D as in dog Williams, and my website is the same. I've not updated my website, but we're, function over form for the moment. And I have a shop, Twice Rabbit Tattoo, here in LA. And you can find me at the Instagram with that same name.
Where did the name of Twice Rabbit come from?
Good question. My mom, sister, and I all say rabbit, rabbit on the first of every month. And I thought that was a tradition everyone did. And then I remember moving to LA and it was, I looked down, it was October 1st. And I was like, oh, rabbit, rabbit. Everyone said, what are you saying? I said, well, it's the first of the month, so rabbit, rabbit. And they were like, that is not clarifying anything. So I realized that it was not something everyone does. And so I was going to name the shop Rabbit Rabbit, but there's already a shop called that in Canada. So Twice Rabbit was born.
I like it. That's so cute and sentimental at the same time.
So
And you
quirky.
can't forget it.
I hope not. That was the hope.
I will remember it. Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person in the future. You're not tattooing today, are you?
I'm not tattooing today.
Are you tattooing
day
something
off.
fun this week?
Oh, well, definitely. I'm curious what it will be. Most of my appointments are flash, so it's kind of a
Ooh.
dealer's choice, my client being the dealer.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for your time, and I'll talk to you later. See you on the
Yeah,
internet.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye. Today's episode was completely edited, recorded, and produced by Kale Pearson. The music was mixed and edited by Dominic Gopal. You can find us on social media at Breaking Skin Pod. For more information, check out our website, breakingskinpod.com. You can find my social media at kale.tattoos. That's spelled K-A-I-L. To check out more of my work, visit kaletattoos.com. For more information on today's guests, you can find their social media in the show notes. Please come hang out every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Central Time for another episode of the Breaking Skin Pod. Thank you all for listening and hanging out. We really appreciate the support. Can't wait to see you next week. Cheers.